I'm a balloon artist and a comedian. After a while, it started to integrate both because I got challenged by somebody at that open mic at Twin Kegs that said, bring a balloon next time.
Context for everyone tuning in. My name's Drew Davis. I'm a comedian. I'm also one of the founders of the Clean Comedy Collective, which is a virtual comedy network of comedians who work clean and are just working to build community. Long story short, we've been around here in Middle Tennessee. I'm based out of the Nashville area. We've been around for about 3 years. About a year ago, we had a website update, which made us think like, hey, let's try to get more comedians across the nation. And long story short, we got about 200 comedians now from all across the country. We're part of the Clean Comedy Collective. And I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of them. And I think, wow, these are really cool people. I'd love to get to, other people to know them as well. And then I realized when I was working on making a new podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the opportunity for people to meet the other comedians in the Clean Comedy Collective. So you're listening to a podcast where I'm going to have comedians on the show. We're going to interview them about comedy. We're going to talk shop. We're also going to get to know them as people. And each week we'll have a different guest. And this will kind of be like an every Saturday thing until I run out of guests or stop doing it or the world ends. And we're currently in a snow apocalypse here in Middle Tennessee, which is fun because the last time I started a podcast 2 years ago, it was also during a snow apocalypse. So I think that's my new snow activity is I'm just going to start a podcast every time I'm stuck at home. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about our very first guest of the entire series. I mentioned I'm a co-founder of the Clean Comedy Collective, and this man is also a co-founder of the Clean Comedy Collective. We're bringing to you this week Sean T Hughes. Sean, how's it going today?
It's going great. How about you?
I am doing great. How's the big snow day been going for you and your family? And I guess it's snow couple days now.
It's been a snow couple of days. Right now, it's just all ice. Actually, my oldest son went to go shovel the driveway. Good kid said, I'm going to shovel the driveway. Great. He got out there about 5 to 10 minutes. Had a neighbor's one of the huge branches fell down because of the ice. And he's like,
Oh
I'm
man.
done.
But at least he went out there first, unprovoked. He went out there to give it his
He
best
really
shot.
did.
Sean, so I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. You're in addition to being a comedian and a producer and one of the guys that helped me found the Clean Comedy Collective. You're also just a really good friend. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the guy that when you're having an existential crisis and you call and you talk to him about, he's like, let's go eat lunch. Let's talk about this over a meal. So just a very important person in my life. My opening question, I'm going to start asking this to all the comedians we have on the show is, Sean, if you could give me a snapshot of who Sean T. Hughes is. And it doesn't have to be all encompassing, but like when if you're asking yourself internally, who is Sean T. Hughes? I'd love to know the answer to that.
Gotcha. I am a uh, gosh, this is the best way to start. Is where I got my start. I was very interested in drama in high school. Ended up going to Chicago to take up theater studies. Then after that, got into magic. I worked in a magic shop in the old Opryland theme park for about 2 years. Started to get into that, and while I was working in that shop at Opryland, there was the manager there said, gave me a book and a bag of balloons. Said, you need to learn how to try to do this. This would be good for you. And I really liked it. Started getting into that. I've been doing that for now 35 years. But in that process, I have a lot of shtick. I have a lot of stuff that I do. And there were a lot of people that said, hey, you should do stand up. So my first stand up I did before I turned 50. I did an open mic at Third Coast. It failed horribly. Didn't do it for not even wasn't quite a year. The pandemic hit. Then I just it kept that little voice kept getting me. It's like you need to go back and try. You need to go back and try. So I went to the one of the few open mics that was open during the pandemic. Nobody was there except for comedians for the most part, and just kept cranking it out. And 5 years later, here I am, still trying to figure it out and still trying to crank it out.
So did the second time you do it at the was it Twin Kegs? Was that the second open mic that you ever did?
It was Twin Kegs. I
Yep.
almost feel like we should genuflex, God rest its soul.
R.I.P. Let's give them a
It's
respect.
now,
That was a nice room. No,
it
it
was. I
wasn't
love
a
it.
nice room, but it was nice because anyone could go do it. That you never knew what you were gonna get, but it
Oh
also
yeah.
low stakes. I loved it. The second time you did comedy at Twin Kegs, what did it go like way better than your first time? Do you feel like?
It didn't go necessarily great still. There was still stuff I needed to work on. And it was just, that's what you do. You go back and you figure it out. You go back and you rewrite and you figure it out. You go back and you rewrite and figure it out.
Mm,
And the hardest part during that time, it was all comics. It wasn't anybody else other than that. So you would get there if you've ever done it's very hard to get a reaction from a comic a lot of times. So I would be trying out stuff and just didn't want to stop and just kept on doing it until we finally started figuring out and then got crowds and then got to laugh here and there. And then you keep building on that and building on that and until you get to the point where here I am right now,
mhm.
still figuring it out, still trying it out, but much better than I was 5 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, it really speaks to the skill of comedy. Like no one who gets up there their first time is just going to be absolutely fantastic. I mean, you may do well, the audience may like your stuff, but like if you keep doing it, no, even if you had an amazing set 5 years ago, today you'd be so much better because you've worked on the skill and stuff like that. It's like every other skill. No one who starts, a sculpting class is going to be perfect the first time.
It's the hardest thing I've ever
Mhm.
done. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know about how you feel, but it's like if I wanted to go the easy route, I would stick to what I'm doing right now. And I would just, there are so many other things, which is why I think because so many people end up dropping out. I mean, you and I have
Mhm.
both seen a lot of comedians who
Yes.
give it a try, they'll do a few shows, and then they'll be like, no, that's enough.
What's impressive to me about your story is that you said the first time you ever did it, you didn't feel like it went well, but then you kept going. Now you took a bit of a break, but you came back and then you kept going back. For me, when I started, the first time I ever did it, I feel like it actually went pretty well. I remember feeling good about the laughs, feeling good about the routine I gave. I practiced it a lot of times, and I felt like I gave what I had practiced. And then I feel like I had 2 years worth of bombing. But what was holding me, like what kept me going was like that feeling I had the very first time I ever did it. And so I almost like commend you for like getting back on the horse after not feeling like, it went well.
I was very ticked off the first time because you have to understand at that point, I was a very successful entertainer.
Mhm.
Like I go in and I do the stuff in my other world without even thinking about it because I've done it so long. To go up and fail was a really hard thing to do, and which is one of the reasons why I stopped. But then before I went back in it and did it again, this was during the pandemic, so I did the online course with Rick Roberts, School of Laughs.
Did that course too.
Started reading more and more books. Did all kinds of stuff in the preparation of it, and then just kept going back. Two things I had to figure out after that first time. Number one, things that you say to your friends or something like that in a close situation doesn't always translate to the stage.
Absolutely.
And um, that's the one thing which I would tell these jokes to friends personally and be like, oh, yeah, that's funny, and wouldn't translate to a stage. And then the second thing is I had to just become more of who I was and not just the nervous guy on stage.
Mhm.
Today, I'm still trying to merge the comedian Sean um, with the balloon artist Sean, the balloon guy Sean, and put those two guys together
Right.
into
Do
one
you feel like
individual.
you've gotten better at being not the nervous guy on stage, like feeling comfortable with who you are on stage over 5 years? Do you feel like you've gotten better at, getting on stage and being that version of yourself?
Yes, that was one of my big goals for 2025. Is that I wanted to be one of the three goals was be more comfortable on stage, and I hit that one. Um, the only other goal I had two other goals. One I can't remember right now, but it's in my notebook. The other one was to do 45 shows. I did 42 shows that year, but still,
Right.
it was you don't sit there and go like, oh, that was a horrible year. You sit there and go, I still go, it was a good year.
Absolutely. 40, I mean, doing 42 shows, it's not like since you said 45, you're like, well, I guess that doesn't count for anything. That's still really impressive. One thing you said that I think is impressive, and I wish more people when they start comedy don't think like this, but I mean I did, and a lot of other people do, and it sounds like maybe you had to deal with it a little bit when you started as well. Was this idea? A lot of us have like other skill sets that we think was going to be a perfect translation in comedy. Like you were saying, like it was frustrating because you had so much time as a balloon artist and you had so much skill and backup. When I first started, my attitude was, I started when I was like 24, but my attitude is like I've been preaching since I was 16. This will be a piece of cake. And one of the first things I learned as a comedian was it's not the same as preaching. There's like a lot. There's skill wise, there's some different things. And I work with comedians all the time who like I teach or consult with, and they're always saying something like, "Oh, well, I do improv, or I've acted, or I've done this. This will play into like this. I won't be as worried about this." And while I'm glad they have the confidence, sometimes they kind of set themselves up for a little bit of a failure in that when they think this is exactly the same as whatever that other thing is.
And we've both known, for example, actors that have tried to get up and do stand-up comedy where they were like, "Oh yeah, we did great." And we were like, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't at all." Um, which is
Yeah.
one of the great rules of comedy. The laughter doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the laughter is the greatest metric. That's why I tell people a lot when they're trying to figure out if they did well. There's other things that can help you decide whether you did a good routine because sometimes they're not laughing as much as you want, but it's like the foolproof, like the math doesn't lie kind of thing where like if they're laughing, then you should count that as a win. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so now I wanted to go. You talked about being a balloon artist, and something I didn't know that you said was the reason you got into it because you were doing magic and other stuff, and someone else looked at you and saw the potential for a balloon artist, right? He's like, you should get into
Yeah,
this. That
because I had shtick doing, and it's all kinds of shtick that you do, and you're reacting to people. It's a little bit of crowd work, but that crowd work is based on like 35 years, or at that time, 30 years of stuff that, you get the same things over. You'll get something funny or different that'll happen once in a while that you'll have to go with. And I would say that's true for comedians a lot of times when they do crowd work.
hmm.
They kind of done it so much they know how to talk to them and react in a funny way, or they have a funny line in the back of their head that when they say this, oh, I'm going to say this right here.
Right.
So
Because
that's
crowd work sometimes isn't as original as people think it is, in that like a lot of crowds say the exact same thing. One of my favorite things that you do, by the way, when you do your show, is when you do a balloon animal behind your back. So if y'all are ever catching Sean at a show, he'll be talking to the crowd, he'll be doing crowd work, but part of the joke is that he's making a balloon animal, but he's not. He's just doing it behind his back, and it seamlessly because you've been doing it for so many years. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, are we not going to address how awesome that is?
I think we should address that to the folks who are listening right now. I'm a balloon artist and a comedian, and I, after a while, started to integrate both because I got challenged by somebody at that open mic at Twin Kegs that said, "Bring a balloon next time," and so that's what I did. I brought a
Yeah.
balloon, and it's kind of been my hook ever since where I do that. It's great for getting people's attention. But it's still important to be funny, to have that
Mm-hmm.
punchline, to have that sense. One of the things that always irritated me was people say that was a really cool balloon. I'd be, yeah, but was it funny? Because
Right.
if you're not getting the laughs, what's the point?
Well, and I was going to ask you, is it weird including balloon animal stuff with your comedy? Like, does part of you feel like you wish you could just do comedy? Like, do you ever feel um, like when you're doing stand up that you don't want to do the balloons because that's such a big part of the rest of your life? Or is it like a seamless, like a part of you where like, no, this is natural. This is what I want to do.
At first, I was like, I didn't want anything of my other life to be in comedy. I wanted comedy just to be about comedy. I wanted my balloon arts to be a lot about me being a balloon artist. But the thing I realized after a while is that incorporating balloons helped me feel more comfortable on stage because I did it so much all the
Mm,
time. And it was one of those things when you try something new, especially when you're after you're experienced in this, that, or the other, you don't throw away that experience. Like you don't throw away the experience of being a youth pastor and the things that you've learned from that when you become a comedian. You take that information and then you add it and assimilate what works. You don't do what doesn't work,
mhm.
and you move on from there. So that's it's very important to not discount that past or those past experiences and stuff like that. So that's eventually I came to that point and eventually became a thing that people wanted to see. So that's what I did. It's a blessing and a curse all at the same time. There are some people that be like, balloon artists doing stand up comedy. I don't know about that. Um,
Then
and
when they
then
see it, hopefully they're like, oh no, that's actually really awesome.
that works. Yes, and it's
Yeah.
different because who else was doing it? Nobody to
Right.
my knowledge.
I think it does two things. It lets you play into your more authentic self, which I think is important for any comedian. Part of the skills figuring out how to, like you said, be comfortable with you while you're on stage. But then, yeah, it's unique. I don't. You're the only balloon artist comedian I know. I can't think of any other balloon artist comedian. Let me ask you this: what is maybe your favorite thing about when it comes to comedy, like what's your favorite thing about being a stand-up comedian? What's your favorite thing about all of what we do as comics?
I love the creativity, the writing and working on that stuff. When you have a new bit or new some joke that you're working on, you go on stage and it works. That's a great thing. Or if you go like, hey, I'm going to work on this. Maybe it didn't get the reaction you wanted, but I'm going to work on it a little bit more, and you keep on working on it. That's a great thing. The people, I love the people that I get to the people that I you get to react with, especially in the collective. They're really fun, really great to work with. Um, and when you're on a stage and you have a gig that goes right, a set that goes right where it's funny and there is nothing like it in the world.
Hmm.
Um, it's those moments to live for when you have that set when you're on stage. You're telling the jokes and it goes really well. There's just nothing like it in the world.
I mean, it is such a high. That's the best to me. That's
It
the best way to
is.
describe it. Like it is. There's a reason why comedians keep going and keep going and keep going. And even when your friends or your family are like, "Why are you doing this?" They haven't seen or they haven't experienced internally the feeling that the success brings. And so, if you go through a dry spell of maybe not having as many gigs or not having as good of gigs, might be like, "Are you still doing that?" But what they don't realize is like, oh my gosh, when this goes well, it is the one of the best feelings ever, one of the best experiences. And yeah, I relate to that. You mentioned the Clean Comedy Collective, so that is our that is me and Sean's collective baby. We have a baby together. We started it. We weren't the only founders, but
Wow.
we're the last two. We're the last two parents
You
that
might have
stuck
to edit
around.
that part out that we had a baby together because people
Yeah,
are
we
going
had a
to look at
baby
that.
together, and it's called the Clean Comedy Collective. Um, I hope it looks more like Sean than it does like me. So we have done a lot with the Clean Comedy Collective, and by that I mean we've done a lot of different kinds of shows. We've done. I feel like we got a very odd resume of different places that we've done Clean Comedy Collective shows at. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking wineries, coffee shops, comedy clubs, juice bars,
Basement
theaters,
of a bar.
basements of our like yeah we've been all over the place. So what I'm wondering is if you have any kind of like really good memory of a show, that a Clean Comedy Collective show, or alternatively, or both, if you have like just maybe a funny or odd story of something that just did not go well. Because if we're being transparent, we've done great shows and we've done other shows where afterwards we're like, well, that happened. That's
Um, the memory of the great show that really came to mind. The one coffee show that we did together in October, the end of October, with Brandon Skelton.
yeah, back at Sweetwater's.
That was such a great show, and I love the fact that I had kids show up. I think I had my oldest daughter and son came to that show. Um, my oldest son and my daughter came to that show. I have three kids. I have two sons and a daughter. They came to that show, and it was great. It's great when they get to see me do well and go like, "Oh yeah, this is my dad."
That's
One of the
cool.
things I like to tell comedians, especially when they have kids, and I forgot to tell this to somebody I gave advice to the other day that you were around at, is that when you have kids and you're a comedian, You will not be your kid's favorite comedian. My oldest son's favorite comedian is Drew Davis, who I'm talking to right
That's
here.
right. He's my most loyal and longest fan. Well, maybe not longest, but most
He is.
loyal for sure. Um, Yeah. What I liked about that show was both your children showed up in costume, and I had no idea who either of them were. Your oldest son, who again I think think the world of, and I know he enjoys what I do. He showed up as Paul Walker, but I just thought it was like a white guy in a t-shirt and khakis. I was like, you look like me when I go to Panera Bread. I don't know what I don't know. So what made that Sweetwater show special for you was that like your kids were there and they got to see you do well. That is that what
Yeah, it was a
is that
great
the
show.
yeah, awesome. Love it. Well that's a fun show. And if anyone's listening here from Nashville, we do that Sweetwater show every last Thursday of the month. Except for November and December, and possibly this coming week if snow's still. I mean, I'm hoping we're all cleared up by Thursday, but we'll see. So,
And
um,
also, you've all often, since this is going out to the collective, mostly to people who are in the collective, you've encouraged people to collective. If you're coming in town, hit Drew up and, possibly get a spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I love bringing in out of towners to be on that show. I know it's usually for like the folks in California or Oregon or whatever. It's probably not worth the drive to come do a little show in the coffee shop, but I always let people know like let me know if you're in the area because I even usually I try to get 5 comedians. I usually only book 4 comedians because I think like in case someone's coming through and they let me know, I like to include out of state guest spots if possible. Um, so Sean, you do comedy, but you've also produced shows. You produced shows with the Clean Comedy Collective. You produced other shows. I remember the first time I maybe met you was at a random show in White House, Tennessee, that we did, and it had a
Yes.
fun backdrop with like a jungle glow in the dark vibe to it. It was real cool. It was a pizza place. It was a
Yes.
pizza place. But it was good. So I'm wondering if you have, from the perspective as a producer or as a comedian, what's one piece of advice you'd give to comedians if you could say something here that everyone would hear and take to heart?
Oh, I actually put notes on this.
Oh,
First
cool.
of all, yes, because I was thinking about that and made notes. The first thing I would say is make sure you have an EPK that you can send out. Um, if anything, a Facebook video, a YouTube video, but it's great if you have an EPK of some type. If you're looking for help making EPK, Drew Davis, actually, you can reach out to him after the podcast, and he actually makes EPKs for people, links that you could send out to someone. I actually used Drew for my first EPK, and then ended up making my own website and moved everything over to there, which you can check out at balloonguycomedy.com. Uh,
Yeah. By the way, I love it when that happens with you. Sometimes people feel weird letting me know, like, hey, I made my own website, but I feel like my EPKs are very basic and very affordable and very like first level once you're willing to pay a little bit of money for your comedy career. But then a lot of people, when they decide that they're going to start, because mine, they're just like a one-time fee and it's relatively small. And then when you decide to make your own website, that's probably like a monthly cost, or if you get someone to do it for you, that's going to charge you more. But and to me, it's always kind of a success when like the people who I have EPKs for sometimes be like, hey, I'm actually going to go make my own site now because that means they're growing as comedians. And so I always think that's
yes,
it's kind of a I'm always like I think it's weird when they send me that. I think they think it's weird when they send me that message and I'm like, that's great, man, good for you. But I just think that's a cool little thing. And you're right though. I had a guy who used to mentor me in comedy when I first started. He said it's so important, even just to have your own domain name, even just to have your own collective place where when people type and you show up, it's more than just sending them a video or sending them to your social media. It just takes you a step above because when we start, we're all open mic comedians, and it's so important to do open mics and to be an open mic comedian. There are just so many of them. So once you start taking comedy professionally and a little bit more seriously, you start asking yourself, what is something I can do to kind of stand out among the herd? and having a deeper online presence is like, in my opinion, kind of an easy thing that you can do. An EPK, a website, even as simple as a link tree, which is free. Once you have that, then when people reach out, you can give them that. And it just makes you look a little bit more professional than the average bear. So, um,
One thing I will add as far as that I've learned over the years with domain names, make sure it's a domain name. Get .com if you can, and make a domain name that is easy for people to not only remember but easy to put in. For example, for you, yours is drewdaviscomedy.com. Drew
yep.
Davis, really easy name to spell. Drew Davis Comedy. It's not anything complicated. Mine is Balloon Guy Comedy, basically for the reason people think I should have bought my, Sean Balloon Comedy or something like that. No, my name is spelled Sean. There's like four or more different ways to spell the name Sean. So I know I need something that people aren't going to mess up or be too complicated or anything like that, where they could put it in and go to. So that's another piece of advice for up and coming comedians to have.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is be sure to have an updated video. Um, Maybe once every 2 years or so. I don't know. You might have a different opinion about that. I made the mistake of getting a comedian, hiring a comedian last year for my show in the Baxter at the Winery, and their video was like 6 years older, and I was like, oh, surely they're better than that now, and it came from a recommendation, and they were not. They were not better.
Yeah,
It
that's
was it was it was a train wreck. So you want to make sure that you have a good EPK, that it's not a shake. You could use cell phone video. Make sure it's edited, not shaky or
and if
looks
you're
like it was
posting
from
a
way in the
YouTube
sky.
video, you want it horizontal. Reels are great vertical,
Yes,
but like you want it to look like a real video if someone's watching your full set, I think.
yes.
But it's funny because I'm so glad this sounds terrible. I'm so glad that happened on your show, Sean, because then you were telling me about it later. And so now every time I watch videos, I think to look at the timestamp of when it is. You're right. I think 2 years or you want to give them recent videos. What I like to do is so every year I try to go to the North Carolina Comedy Festival, and I know that they record the routines there. So every year I try to get a really good set there, and then that becomes my thing for the whole year. And then best case scenario, I get a better video at some point in the
Yeah,
year.
even if you're doing the same jokes, those jokes change
Mm-hmm.
and mature and get better with time. So even if you look at say, well, it's a new video, but it's the same jokes I've been doing. No, those jokes get better and you deliver them better and they become more a part of you. So
Yeah.
always be writing, of course, and working on new material and stuff like that. But don't be afraid to put up new video with old jokes, especially that doesn't look dated.
Yeah, and then I heard I think this might have been at the Clean Comedy Workshop we both were at with Joel Byers a few weeks ago. But a recent piece of advice that I heard was like if you're booked at a new place and they book you from the video you send, do those jokes in your set because that's what they book. Don't feel like you have to do something different, or for whatever reason. If that's your best stuff and if that's what got you the gig, like feel comfortable and preferably do that stuff. Was that
As
were we at the same thing that heard that, or am I thinking of
Yes,
a
we were.
different?
Yeah, it was Joel, and he's talked about that on his podcast before. Joel Byers, if for those people who want to look him up.
Yes,
But
Hot Press
it's
podcast, and I'm hoping to get him for our third episode, just in case you guys want to stay out for that.
very,
So,
very cool guest. You guys want to catch that one. But yes, you want to make sure to do what got you there and do your best stuff. As creative people, we want to try new things and we want to do new things, and we get that. We may have done that gig, those jokes a million times. This is the thing, guys. The people who are hearing your jokes that you've done a million times, they've never heard them before. So
mm-hmm.
you have to perform that sounds fresh and new and not like, oh, I'm doing this joke again. I'm so sick of this joke. It has to be fresh and new. That's what a professional is.
Yep, and that's and if and often for me, oftentimes once I get rolling in the routine, I can kind of find the motivation because I don't know, I draw off of their energy and they haven't heard it before. But the truth is even on jokes I'm tired of, even on jokes you're tired of, that's the performing part. That's the, you know, that's the actors have to do that when they have to do the same lines all the time. In practice, they have to
Yes.
make it sound fresh every time. And as comedians, we're performers too. So, Sean, I wanted to ask you. So I asked you about what the best part of comedy for you. What would you say is the hardest part of stand-up comedy?
The clicks. Comedy is very bro centric sometimes, and there have been people who have not been so nice. There are people even today. It's like I know if I'm going to be doing stand up and they're in the audience, that they're making fun of my set while I'm doing it, and I can
Mhm.
tell that they're saying this and that and making comments. That's the hard thing, and it's one of those things that if you want it bad enough, you have to
Mhm.
push through and know that eventually that's not your audience. You're not there to please them. You're there to please the audience, the real people, the muggles that show up, that want to come and they want to laugh and forget about life for a while.
Absolutely. Now, do you have any? Because that is very hard. No comedian would disagree with you. I don't think there's ever a level where that stops being a problem. Do you have any tips on how we can handle that better as comedians to deal with the clicks and the mean people and the what people are saying behind your back, or even on your to your face and on social media? Like as a comedian, what helps you kind of get through that stuff?
Well, the good thing is that it's not a social media thing. If somebody posts that they don't like your joke on social media, you just have to let it go. And a lot of times we have that haters math where we go 100 likes plus one dislike equals one dislike, and you
Mhm.
have to remember that that one guy that's disliking your set, they're disliking what you're doing, they're making fun of you because you're a jerk. They're a jerk, and it has to do with their insecurities, not your insecurities. Um, it took me a while to learn that you have to just
Mhm.
you have to focus on the good things, the positive things that are happening, as compared to the negative.
You're a goals guy, Sean. I know that, and you talked about your goals for 2025. You talked about how you met one of them. Where I'm gonna give you leeway and say you met two of them because 42 out of 45 shows is pretty good. And then I don't know if you ever remembered what your last goal of 2025 is, but I'm
I can
interested.
reach over to my briefcase right now and get it out. I think it's sitting on my bed. And you can get
Oh,
it if
cool.
you
Yeah, we
really
gotta
want to
know.
know.
We gotta
Do we
know if
want to
you.
know? We want to know. Hold on a second.
Yeah, we
Hold on a
gotta
second.
know if you we gotta know if you made it or not for 2025. So,
It's in my comedy notebook here.
oh,
By the
look
way,
at that. Yeah.
2025 comedy notebook. It's kind of worn. Da-da-da-da. More comfortable on stage and have more fun on stage. That was the other
Okay.
one.
How do
And
you
I
feel
think
that one went?
that one is going better. One of the best advice that a comedian gave me was like, go on and have fun. That's so important that you go on and have fun. It's not
Mhm.
worth it if you're not. It's not
No.
worth putting all the stuff if you're not having fun and enjoy it.
It
So that's
everything in comedy makes sense if you're having a good time. It gives you the strength to
yes,
deal with whether we were talking about the negativity or the stressful work hours or the all the not fun things of trying to get booked and stuff like that. It's all you find the strength to be okay with all of that if you love what you're doing. And so you're so right. Well, those are good goals. Now, have you thought about your 2026 goals yet?
yes. I haven't. They're not totally definite right now, um, but there are things I'm working on. One of the things I'm working on is once a month. I want to be somewhere outside of the Nashville area, even if it's for an open mic. Which this will be after it comes out, but this coming Wednesday, this will have already happened by the time you watched it. But I'm getting the opportunity to the open mic at the Caravan Comedy Club in Louisville, Kentucky. And the cool thing is, when he sent me the message, he was like, because I just wanted, my
Mhm.
whatever time that he gives you. The time that he gives you depends on your experience. If you've been
Mhm.
doing this for a while, you see you have good stuff. I think the last time I was up there, I got 8 minutes. This time around, he was like, "Hey, you want to do the final spot for 15 minutes?" I was like, "Yeah." So
That's
I'm
awesome.
doing that this coming Wednesday, and I will be up there no matter what the weather is. I will be driving
You'll
up
get
there.
up. That's right. That's right. Because that's only in a couple days, but or in a few days. I think it. Hopefully, it should be fine by Wednesday. But I love that for
Yeah,
you. I've done that feature spot before, and it's a lot of fun. He's a Craig who runs the open mic for the Caravan. He's a great guy. And
he
it's
is.
just a cool spot. You've been there before, you know. So that's awesome.
And I was
So
surprised I got it because I was supposed to go up in September and had to cancel on him. I had an issue with a kid where I had to go, like, I hate to do this. I would never do this any other way, and just apologize profusely. So when he offered it again, I was very grateful, and I will be up there come hell or high water. That's
yeah,
all I got to say.
that's great. And that'll probably be the last comedy related question I have for you in a second. But because this is something that I think would be interesting to talk about. You have to deal with balancing building a comedy career with being a responsible father and husband. And it's so hard because I know whenever we anything comedy gig based, we feel like it's and to be fair, sometimes comedy clubs make us feel this way, but like oftentimes when you have to say no to comedy, you feel like you're just killing an opportunity forever. Like and sometimes we get nice people like that who when stuff happens they say, hey, come back in another month. But honestly, other times when we say no to things, they'll call someone else and then that person will do great and that'll be the guy they call for the rest of the things. How do you balance building your comedy career and like taking care of your family or being there for your family?
There is no perfect balance. I actually had to talk to um, last Monday. Martin Luther King Day was last Monday. First of all, this was being recorded, and Joel Byers was there teaching the class, and I could listen to him on his podcast and go like, because he's for those of you who know Joel, he just had a baby, and I had to go to him and I go like, man, I can hear the fact that you don't want to leave home. Here's the reality of it. There's going to be things that you miss as a dad because you're booked on a show or something like that. And there are things that I've missed for my kids where I've been because I've been booked on a show or something like that. Sometimes you've got a thing for your kids on your calendar. It's like, nope, can't do that show. My kid's having this, and I'm going to
Mhm.
be there for them on that. Sometimes your kid has this thing come up. It's like, I'm already booked. I can't get out of this. It's important. I've got to do it. But here's the trade off that I had to tell him is that there are other I get even though I'm not there for all my kids' events, I get to make breakfast for my kids every day and take them to school every day. And in that process, have conversations with them um, about anything in general, life in general. And that's the trade off that you get. You miss some of the big moments, but in some ways, I get to be there for my kids more because of that. So it's never going to be perfect. It's never great. Um, it's easier for the single people without kids or anything to start. Like it's easier for you to do more comedy than it is for me to do more comedy because you're
Right.
single. You have no commitment. You could just up one weekend decide, oh, I'm going to travel to so and so, and other than your regular job, you could
Yeah.
work that out. You could make it happen.
That was like the
Those are
reoccurring thing. The comedians I would work with, like headliners when I'd go on tour, like when I'd show up at comedy clubs and feature hosts, they just look at me and be like, "You have no idea how lucky you have it, not having kids and being single and stuff like that." And I'll be honest, I do enjoy it, but I appreciate how you are able to do both well. And that's a really
I
good insight.
I don't do both well, but thank
Good
you.
that was a good insight that when I asked how do you do it, and you said there's no foolproof way, but I feel like the subtext there is, but you make it work, and
You
that's
make
for
it work. Absolutely.
parents, and for spouses. There isn't a perfect system, but you figure out how to make it work, and
It's
I
like
can appreciate that.
it's like spinning plates. If you remember the old vaudeville thing where they spun plates on sticks and stuff like that, you're not spinning a plate all at one time. Sometimes you're spinning this plate, and then you move over and spin that plate because that needs a little focus. And then you go to another plate. That's the same thing for me. It's sometimes I got to take care of my kids. Sometimes I need to do. I got this gig doing balloon art. Then sometimes I come over here and do some comedy, and it all works together. Like I wouldn't trade my kids for the world.
That's
Um,
so cool. And I being in youth ministry as long as I was, oftentimes you can tell. This sounds weird, but like you can tell how good the parents are at being parents by how the kids relate or see or interact with the parents. And I really do. I'm impressed by how highly your teenage children think of you. Because that's not usually the
It's
year that our kids think highly of us. And I
they
just think
they
that's
don't,
cool.
depending on the time, they don't always think highly of me. But I will say this: I do have great kids, and I think of in my other life as a balloon artist and doing birthday parties or convention events or whatever. When I'm doing a birthday party, I can tell you in the first 5 minutes how involved those parents are in the kids' lives.
Mhm.
It's an important thing, and I think it balances us out, and it gives me something to talk about here and there. So
Absolutely. So then, speaking of things to talk about, we've talked about before all a myriad of like just nerdy topics. I mean, I think me and Sean have this in common. We're a fan of superheroes. We're a fan of Star Wars. We're a fan. Well, you're a fan of Star Trek. I can't. I know. I grew up watching Star Trek. It never really was my thing. But I'm just curious, like in general, right now, like what are you nerding out on? Is there a particular show or series or anything that's really just making your life complete? I guess.
I gotta. This was my comparison. I thought about this question beforehand. Um, Star Trek is to me the way um, the Fast and Furious is to you. That's probably the best way for me to put it.
I love that.
I'm watching Starfleet Academy right now, and even though I don't like what they've done with some of the new Star Trek stuff, like I don't like the fact that they had this cataclysmic event that really tore the Federation apart, and they're rebuilding it. That they've gone so far into, like they've gone hundreds of years in the future compared to where the series ended. Um, they're sometimes a little bit too politically correct, is what they focused on. But I am nerding out on Star Trek Academy because I think they can be the politically correct. You can be politically correct if you tell the story well,
Hmm.
and there's no substitute for telling the story because there have been some really politically correct movies that have been really bad, and
Right.
even some great movies. Like I heard some Christians get on to me about a Christian movie that's really bad. I'm like, yeah, but a good movie has to be a good movie still.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if it's Christian or not. It's still got to be a good movie.
I
Even
feel that.
politically, and jokes and stuff like that. Politically correct. It's got to be funny. It's got to be good.
Hmm.
And so I really am enjoying Starfleet Academy because Holly Hunter, who I didn't think would be a great captain lead person, I actually really like her. And the cast they put together is so neat where I'm really enjoying the cast. So
That's awesome.
that's
I love that for you. And I love that. I mean, anyone who's followed me from my other podcast, you know that like to me, any kind of TV show, any kind of movie, any kind of entertainment, like the joy we find in it and the fulfillment and the satisfaction, sometimes just the distraction is such a beautiful thing.
oh,
Good for you for having Star Trek. Good for me for having Fast and Furious. That's those are we need those things sometimes. Sometimes all you can do is sit at home on a snow day and binge watch your favorite show and just rejuvenate, and I think
I
that's
did
beautiful.
finish the latest episode of Star Trek Academy last night. So
Okay, well, now what I want to do is so I've compiled earlier this week before I started our podcast, I asked people on Facebook, on Threads, and on Instagram. I said, hey, I'm going to be interviewing comedians every week. What are some questions you'd like me to ask? And I think I got like 43 questions, and we're going to ask every single one of them. No, I'm just kidding. We're not. Uh, but Sean, we'll maybe do two or three.
throw it in. We
So
can do it. 43. Let's do it.
yeah, right now we're gonna do, and then next week we'll have 43 different ones. No, I'm just kidding. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull up my little list here, and Sean, what you can do is I'm looking for a number between 1 and 42, and then that'll help me figure out what question I'm asking you.
Let's start with number 13. just
13.
because.
This question came from Threads from James Mack, who's a fellow comedian. I believe he's New York or New Jersey. I genuinely can't remember. One of the news. And his question is, if you could bring back a musician from the dead for one last concert, who would you choose?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Maybe get the Beatles back together for one last. Let's bring back John Lennon to at least get John Lennon and Paul McCartney back for one last show.
I think
Um,
that'd be a good show. Yeah. Let's do another one. Any number 1 to 42 without 13.
25.
25. All right. This one's from Facebook from Joe Whitey, who's also in the Clean Comedy Collective, and we might actually get to see her on the podcast at some point too. This question says, "When did you realize you were funny?"
That was probably in high school when I started to do drama and theater, and I was always drawn towards comedies. I love Neil Simon. And Neil Simon is a very particular humor that you just can't say the line.
Mhm.
You have to really work and know the beats and know. I mean, it's not just, you can't just say the line and make it work. You really have to work on it in depth. So that was probably for me the first time for funny right there. And then realized I like making people laugh.
Absolutely. That's a good answer. And it's funny how so many comedians who or eventually become practicing stand-up comedians, there was a time, and usually it's like in childhood or when they were much younger, where they kind of in the back of the head were like, maybe I could be a comedian, something like that. And I think so much of becoming a comedian, a successful comedian, is giving yourself permission to be a comedian. I think that's a big part of it. So, all right,
Kind of
let's do
going back
what.
to our,
Oh, go ahead.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, coming back to our first, I would advice for newer comedians. First of all, don't be afraid to fail because more times than not, you're going to fail at the very beginning. And you kind of have to believe in something that's not there yet, but you know it's there in your heart of hearts. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
knew I could be funny. I knew I could make something work. And in my head, I still believe that, which is why you keep doing it. Because if you don't believe it,
Mm-hmm.
you'll eventually quit.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you have to be your biggest fan. At the
Yes,
end
you
of the day,
do.
you have to be your biggest supporter. Because there'll be days where tons of people are supporting you, and then there's the days where it feels like it's just you. All right, last question. 1 through 42, not 25 or 13.
Let's do 33.
33. All right, Jesus's age. Um, all right, this one comes from Joe Hoswell on Facebook. Why do you choose to do clean comedy?
That's a very easy question. I have, for two reasons. First of all, I work in a children and family entertainer, my real job, and that's the job that pays bills. I don't want to be doing something where somebody sees me say blankety blank on
Mhm.
a show online somewhere and then goes, no, I'm not going to hire him for this. Because in my world, about somewhere between 13 and 15% of what I do are for churches. In my world is Sean the Balloon Guy, is a balloon artist. Um, and that's a good significant amount of money. The other reason is I'm a parent of three teenagers, and I have to be that example. And if you're a comedian who who cusses and stuff like that, and you have kids, I'm not judging. That's great for you, but for me, I didn't want to be like, yeah, you don't cuss, but me on stage. Oh, but when I'm on stage, it's totally fine, and that's you're sending your kid two different message, and being a dad is very important to me.
Yeah. And your job and career or calling or whatever you want to call it as a comedian, it's not as important when it comes down to it as being a dad. And it's not as important as the job that's paying the bills to support your family. I know I have a lot more flexibility with what I can do as a comedian now than when I was a youth pastor. And I don't regret holding myself back when I was a youth pastor because my ministry and that as in my job, that came first. And I never wanted something I did in comedy to negate what I was doing in ministry. So thank you so much for coming on the very first episode. How's it feel to know that this could have gone so badly that this could have been the first and last episode of this podcast? But I still want to do
I
another
think this
episode.
this is one of my better interviews because I can tend to go off the being a creative person. You can go in all these different rabbit holes off the deep end. So I'm very satisfied with it. If that means anything,
Oh, good. I'm
and you're a
glad.
great host.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to keep doing this and get to know the other comedians that we have in our collective. But before we let you go, two questions. One, where can people find you? And then two, do you have anything upcoming or anything that you'd want to plug or push or tell people about? Because this would be the time to do it.
The only thing I have going right now is going to be before this comes out, this coming Wednesday, I'm going to be, like I said earlier, at the Caravan Comedy Club. I'm doing, yes, it's an open mic, but I get a 15-minute set, and that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that
I can't think of
I
anything.
think you should definitely, yes, it's an open mic for everyone else, but you're the closing feature. They're gonna announce you as like you're the headliner. I've done that spot before.
Yeah,
It feels
so,
different. You're like the big deal of the night, you know, and I think that's cool.
and I got a friend in Louisville coming out to see me, so that's nice. So that's the good thing. The only thing I got coming up right now that's notable. I've got a couple other things on my calendar, but you can check those out on my website at balloonguycomedy.com. The link to all my social media is there.
Did
Book,
you?
Instagram, TikTok is all Balloon Guy Comedy. So you can look at that up and you can find that. Or just the link is on my website at balloonguycomedy.com.
And we'll have links. All if you're watching us on YouTube, it's in the description. Anything that you're listening on Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Music, whatever. If you look at the episode description, we'll have links to balloonguycomedy.com. We'll also have a couple of options where you could set you. There's a one where you can write to us. You can send us a comment if you have any thoughts about what we said in this episode, or if you want to add your question to the list of questions that we ask comedians. There's an option where you can do that. I think it says send us a comment or a question, and then you click it, and that's what you can do. Listen, thank you everyone. Thank you again, Sean, for being our guest. But thank you to everyone who's listened to the first episode of Clean Comedy Chats with Drew Davis. Here's just a reminder: check out cleancomedycollective.com. You can see all the things clean comedy related. You can get to know our comedians, maybe find your new favorite comedian. There's also options to listen to the podcast. There's also options for some additional resources if you want to take classes or learn more things about comedy. There's also options to donate if you want to help sponsor what we do as a Clean Comedy Collective. You can also see when we have upcoming shows. So a lot of great things on the website, including this interview, which I'm very happy about. So thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone who's listening. I don't have a cool tag yet. I'm not going to say go live your life a quarter mile at a time because this isn't that